Hello there, my name is Osiris, and this is the sixth installment of a video series that I began back in 2014 called Dear Future Me. Basically, the way it works is every 2 years I make a video and I talk about what my life has been like over the past 2 years. I address myself 2 years in the future and ask myself some questions, and I also respond to some questions that I asked myself 2 years ago. I've been doing this since I was 16 years old. I'm now 27. I would be 26 if I was filming this video on time, but I'm a little bit late getting to it. So in this video, I'm going to be addressing my 28-year-old self, maybe 29 if future me, you're getting to this a little bit late again. But yeah, let's get into it. I'm gonna start out by responding to some questions that I asked myself 2 years ago. How many times since this video have you moved? I've moved 2 times, so a little bit less than the prior 2 years that I was talking about in my last video. I had moved 6 times, which is crazy. That was a very volatile time in my life, going from living in DC right at the beginning of 2020, and then the pandemic happening. I broke my leg, moved back home. I moved back to my college town, moved down to Austin, and then moved up to Chicago, back to Austin. So that was a lot. These past 2 years have been mostly chill. I spent most of my time in Austin. I'm gonna actually use this question as an opportunity to just kind of give like a complete overview of the last couple years of my life. So starting from 2 years ago around this time, I had just started working my first ever user experience design job. I was living here in Austin and I had just completed a UX like online bootcamp program and had been doing a job search. And this was my first time moving into that industry. I'm still here 2 years later, still working in UX. But yeah, at the time, and still, like, honestly, it's a very exciting thing. I really love the work I do and the freedom that my job affords me. I'm able to work completely remotely, and the salary that I get is very nice compared to what I would have expected myself to be making at this time if I had stayed working in music and arts administration. So yeah, that's been a really nice change that has basically started in the last couple of years. But yeah, 2 years ago when I got that job, I was still living in a studio apartment in Riverside in Austin. And that was the last few months that I lived there up until the beginning of that summer. I did my first of the 2 moves. I moved up to Minneapolis and I spent the summer there with my friend Nova. Nova has been my friend since elementary school, honestly. We got really close in high school. Once we went into college, we kind of went our separate ways and didn't keep in touch as much into our early adult lives, but we've reconnected recently in the last few years. And yeah, I spent that summer in Minneapolis. Since then, Nova's come down here to Austin to visit me a couple times, and I'm sure I'll be seeing them again in not too long. But yeah, that summer was really nice. Again, flexing that freedom of being able to work wherever to avoid the Texas summer. I really love being able to live in different places in short periods of time to give me the opportunity to really get to know a place. I've talked a lot in the past, in the last video I made 2 years ago and the video before that, about how I have this dream of living a more nomadic lifestyle where I'm able to do this, like go to a place like Minneapolis or anywhere and just live there for a month to a few months to really get a feel for what life is like there beyond just visiting it as a tourist. But anyway, at the end of that summer, I moved back down to Austin into this house that I currently live in. I moved in with my friend Jacob and my other friend Aaron, and it's been lovely living here. We did have another roommate who moved in not long after that to make a total of 4, and that roommate and the rest of us did have some internal conflict issues. It wasn't a great situation, and they ended up moving out after a while, which was unfortunate. But since then, our other friend Chris has moved in and taken the 4th bedroom. And yeah, it's mostly been a great time. I'm not gonna lie and say that there haven't been instances of butting heads. It's hard when you are a group of adults all living together in a space, having to share that. But I think for the most part, we've really managed to do it well. I feel really close with all of my roommates. I'm not gonna lie, again, like right now, we are kind of in a situation where there is a lot of tension between some of them. I think that we are very much antsy to be moving on and living in our own places. Speaking for myself personally, I definitely am looking forward to having that freedom. That's what I'm planning to do when this lease is over, is to go live by myself for a while. But yeah, even like filming this video, I really wanted to have the house to myself in order to do that. So I really had to like schedule and make sure that, okay, everyone's gonna be gone at this time, so this is a good time for me to film this without being disturbed. But yeah, we have a happy household. We've hosted some fun parties here. It's nice having this big space. I love this living room. Most of the thanks goes to Jacob and Aaron for all the decorating around here. It really looks very homey, I feel, and I love it because I'm not great with that kind of stuff. Aaron has a cat named Frank, who I love dearly. Chris had a dog named Abraham, and he sadly had to be put down just a few weeks ago. And yeah, he was the grandpa in our house for a while, which was sweet. But right now, our house is just the four of us and Frank, and it's a lovely time. So over the past like year and a half or so, I guess like the rest of the time since the end of summer 2022 when I moved in here to now, I have traveled a lot more. Even though I haven't moved to another place, I've taken some really awesome trips, and again, really leveraging the fact that I can work from wherever to be able to do that without having to take a ton of PTO to travel all the time. I've gone to Mexico, to Chicago, to the East Coast. This past summer I had a really awesome trip going from New York City down through Pennsylvania, New Jersey, to Baltimore and DC. My first time going back to DC since I left there when I got laid off and broke my leg back in 2020. But aside from traveling, I've just been trying to live my best life here in Austin. A lot of my friends here I've made through intramural sports that Jacob really got me into, honestly. And I did get some really unfortunate news about a year ago. I went to the doctor about my ankle, which I broke 2 years ago, or 4 years ago, I mean. And basically the doctor advised me to stop playing sports that would require me to run and jump on my leg, because that would lead it to develop arthritis at an earlier age than I would have otherwise. So that's been a massive bummer, honestly. I really miss playing sports, and I actually need to get to the doctor again because I want to get a second opinion. I want to really get like better information about how to take care of my leg and make sure I can stay active for as long as possible, because that's my big fear and the reason why I basically have stopped completely running and playing sports, because I want to make sure I can still like, you know, go hiking up until my 80s or whenever. At the very end of 2022, that winter, I ended up leaving my first ever UX job that I had started, you know, about 2 years ago. And I moved into a new job that I still currently hold. One of my friends from the boot camp I did actually referred me to work with her. She lives here in Austin as well. My current company is based here in Austin, even though we're fully remote. And I really love working for this company. They treat us very well. And yeah, I just feel really supported in my team. I feel like compared to any other company I've worked in the past, there is next to no like internal conflict or like communication issues, which is just amazing to me. So I feel really lucky to be working there. I'm not gonna lie and say that it's my dream job, because honestly, most days I am just sitting in front of my computer for 8 hours, and that's not ideal. I would love to be like out on my feet, you know, exploring, experiencing the world, talking with people, and that's really just not what my job is. So I don't want to complain too much because my job is great and it gives me a lot of freedom in my life. I enjoy the work, I enjoy the people I work with. It's just maybe not my passion. But all that aside, I did celebrate my 1-year anniversary at this job just a few months ago. And this is the first job I've ever had in my life that has been both a full-time job and a job that I've worked at for over a year, which is amazing at, you know, 26 years old when that anniversary happened. Relationship wise, I'll talk about my relationship with Jacob, because that's probably the most significant relationship in my life. Jacob and I were friends 2 years ago, but we weren't as close as we were now. We were still like really good friends, and we would hang out regularly. And I don't think we had planned on living together yet, but I think that it was definitely a possibility that we were discussing. But basically, Jacob and I met back in the fall of 2021 on Scruff, and we hooked up together, and then we didn't do anything after that, like physical romantic, but we remained friends. We would just like hang out, go on walks, and over time he was the one who actually got me into playing sports. And the day before I went to Minneapolis, I was staying over at his place, and we ended up just making out, and that was that. And then I left for 2 months, and then when I came back, I guess we kind of just picked things up where we left off and just started getting closer. It was a really nice situation for a good amount of time. We were basically like friends with benefits, and like also just best friends. It was great spending time together, but over time, it just became clear that we wanted different things out of the relationship. We had gotten really close to the point where we were going on lots of trips together, we met each other's families, and eventually we did get to the point where we were referring to each other as boyfriends, even though there was always an asterisk there. And I hesitate to even go into too much detail about this because it is still very raw, I guess, and I don't know. Things aren't fantastic right now between us. We're still definitely best friends. We still have a good time hanging out together, but more often than before, I feel like we butt heads, we get into disagreements, and it's just really tense. And I think there's just like a lot of emotions there from, going from having a strong relationship, verging on a romantic relationship, to then scaling that back down to where we are now, where, we're not physical anymore, we don't kiss, because we're trying to make things as good for both of us as possible. I feel like the way I'm describing this now, it's probably evident, like how it's complicated, sensitive, and the situation is not ideal because we still live together and don't have space apart from each other to process all of our emotions individually. I think that would make things much better, but this is a challenge that we're both working through together, and overall, I'm very happy with the situation. But again, I am very much looking forward to moving out and living by myself for a while. And a big part of me looking forward to that is like wanting this space from Jacob so we can both hopefully work through things individually and be in a better place in our friendship, because Jacob is, like I said, my best friend, and he's really been there for me through a lot, and I have a lot of love for him, and I want us to be friends forever. So that's where we are with that now. I promise my answers to the other questions will not be as long as that. Are you still making the walking videos, the POV videos? How is that going? I am still making walking videos. So I started my YouTube channel called Lomas ATX. That's the current name. I've been workshopping a name for that since I started the channel back in 2020. But yeah, I am still at it, making videos where I have a GoPro and a gimbal. I walk around and film neighborhoods and just places I'm traveling to and visit. And it's something that brings me a lot of joy, especially now that I've been doing it for 3.5 years. Looking back at the videos I made years ago and being able to now be nostalgic and reminisce about these places I visited and lived in, it's really special to me. I think that maybe 2 years ago when I asked this question, I was really curious about whether my channel itself had taken off and become maybe more than just a hobby and more so of a side hustle or career path. I basically stayed on the same trajectory I was already on back then. I did get to the point where I could monetize my channel, so I'm now getting like $100 a month from that, but definitely not anywhere near something I could live on. But when I was talking earlier about my job and wanting to work in a career that I feel passion toward, I would really love to one day be able to leverage something creative like making videos. Maybe if it's not something as simple as what I do now, but it could be something more like travel vlogging, or I don't know what else, but something where I'm doing the thing that I already would want to be doing anyway and getting paid for that. That is the dream that I would like to make my life. What is the state of the world? Have there been any more COVID level world events that have happened since this video? What's gonna happen? I'm not taking anything for granted that I can predict what's gonna happen in the future. You know, right now, the global news is being dominated by the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Are we on the edge of World War III? Who knows? Are we about to go into another recession or depression? Economy's not looking great. Things are not looking so bright for the future right now. Well, I think that the world has kind of continued on a trajectory that it was already on 2 years ago. I think that past me would be glad to see that it hasn't devolved quite as badly as maybe I was expecting back then, but it still is terrible, so maybe not. Back then, 2 years ago, it was not long after Russia's invasion of Ukraine, which was very surprising for, I think, most people, and really upsetting. You know, there's a lot of talk of like, is this going to be the beginning of World War III? That conflict is still going on, sadly. And in addition to that, we have what's really dominating the news now and has been for like half of a year now, the genocide in Gaza, which is being conducted by the Israeli government and is being funded mostly by the United States government. It is a terrible situation, and I hope, like, if there's one silver lining that's coming out of it, is that it maybe will wake more people up into paying attention to the world and what's happening in places outside of their bubble, and also how we in America and wealthier nations, our actions affect people around the world. As much as we would like that not to be the case, and we'd like to just absolve ourselves of all responsibility and all influence as individuals living in our privileged lifestyles, I think it's important that we do acknowledge the fact that it's not that simple, and a lot of the reasons that we are able to live such comfortable lives compared to most of the world is because of the exploitation of a lot of these other places. I don't believe it has to be that way, but I believe that the forces that be, the ultra wealthy, you know, the people making these decisions are the ones leading us down this direction of really terrible injustice and inequity. I did not mean for this answer to start being me just getting on my soapbox and talking about philosophy and the way I think the world should be and the way I think people need to think about the world, but yeah, the world is shit right now, and it still bothers me, as it's bothered me for a long time, that a lot of people in my life aren't tuned in, and I think that's why I get into this mode of talking about, like, well, this is the reason why I think this is the way this thing is, and this is the reason why I think people think this way about this topic or don't think about this topic at all, because I want to be empathetic and acknowledge the reality of the way things are on the ground. But I'm so tired, and I don't know, like, this is a moral dilemma I'm constantly having. Like, how do you live a life that you're proud of and happy with when, you know, there is so much suffering happening in the world and you're not dedicating so much to stopping that suffering? Like, it's always finding this balance between, I need to live my life and find joy in my life and pursue my passions, my dreams, things I want to do with my life. But on the other hand, I feel the need to dedicate some portion of my time, my wealth, my energy into ending suffering where I can. Now, I think that this responsibility lays so much heavier on the shoulders of the ultra wealthy, the people with power. But if we don't have this philosophy at the root of our society, especially like I know I am not only like privileged among the world population, but I'm also privileged among the American population in terms of my income, but also the fact that I was educated at a young age. I had a stable household growing up, you know, all these things. So it only feels fair that I should dedicate some portion of my time, energy, and money into helping others. I don't know. Like, I think about this with me wanting to live as a nomad and just be carefree, going from place to place, exploring, getting to know what it's like to live in different places. But at the same time, that's a very privileged lifestyle to live in a lot of ways. I mean, there's ways to do it, obviously, where you're doing it really on the cheap and you're not really living like in a place that you would potentially be competing for housing with someone who is a lower income and actually lives in the place that you're trying to visit. But that's the way I would like to do it. And yeah, it's complicated. I'm sorry, I did not really plan out what I was gonna say very well in advance, so I'm really just going off topic like crazy here. But yeah, the state of the world, it's bad. Biden and Trump are running for election again. Who could have predicted that? It's a race to the bottom. They're both trying to see who can be the worst possible candidate for the American people, while Biden is basically committing genocide across the world. Trump is the figurehead for the party that has made abortion illegal in some parts of the country and basically inaccessible in many other parts of the country. And he is, well, not convicted, but he is indicted, I guess the word, for like almost 100 felonies. He's going to all these trials. Both of the candidates are like historically unpopular, and it's insane. But in terms of like a big COVID level global event, I don't think there has been anything on par with that quite yet. But we shall see what's in store for us in the next couple of years. My last question, I'm not sure exactly how I want to ask this, but just basically, how's your mental health doing? Like, how are you feeling? Are you happy? Are you fulfilled? Do you feel confident in your relationships? How is my mental health doing? Well, I'd say it's gotten marginally better in the past couple of years. On the positive side, I feel like in a lot of ways I'm more confident in myself than I ever have been before. A lot of that I think is thanks to Jacob, I'll say. And a lot of that is just me maturing, having more experiences, meeting more people, and I guess like being able to shed a bit of the anxiety that I've always carried my whole life about the way people are perceiving me, and just like the feelings of self-loathing I've always had in general. Now, that's still very prominent, and I still go through phases of feeling more depressed and then phases of feeling better. And I thought it was interesting, in my video 2 years ago, I specifically asked, are you feeling confident in your relationships? And I think I still very much struggle with that. And I've gotten into my feelings recently about that because I'm reflecting on my time I've spent in Austin. I've been here for over 3 years now, and I do feel a little bit, I guess, dissatisfied with my relationships here. I just feel like, I don't know, it's like the kind of thing that I don't even like to dwell on, even though I struggle not to, because I don't think that it serves me to think about. It was my birthday a week ago, and I threw a little picnic for myself in the park. And as I was inviting friends to come share this moment with me and like celebrate my birthday, I just couldn't get out of my head the feelings of, dang, these people aren't really gonna wanna come. I'm not really close with these people, and they're all just gonna like either come out of obligation or not come at all. And like, I just feel like guilty to like be taking this time out of their day to come do something for me. Like, listening to me say this out loud, I feel like, of course, it sounds ridiculous. Even if there's truth to it, it doesn't matter. Like, it's just not helpful for me to think about that. So I need to not think about that. Like, this is how my logical, rational brain tries to work through emotions. And it's just like exhausting sometimes. I wish I could turn it off and just chill out, but it's like I said, a work in progress. I don't know if I said that, but it is a work in progress. I am not seeing a therapist right now. My insurance does not cover it at all, so it would be very expensive for me to do so, and I've just judged that I can use that money to do other things in my life that will make me happier and make my mental health better. I've seen several therapists at this point in my life, and most of them I feel like were just not good connections at all, not good fit. So spending a lot of money to go do that with people, to really open up and be vulnerable, only to get to the point of realizing, okay, this isn't going to be a good therapist-client relationship. I just don't want to do that right now, but I would love to be back in therapy one day, maybe in 2 years. Oh, also, have you cut your hair? Do you still have long hair? Have I cut my hair? Why, yes, I have. I had that long hair for so long. I didn't get a haircut from 2018 up until I think 2023, and I got it trimmed, and then this past summer I finally cut it all off and went back to short hair. And a lot of that was kind of like I don't know, existential thing of me thinking, okay, this hair has been my identity for so long. Since I was in college, I've been growing my hair out. Throughout COVID, throughout my entire time in Austin, I've had long hair. And I felt like me cutting it off was almost like killing a part of myself. And then, of course, when I cut it off, it was just like, okay, I'm still the same person. And now I can be much more low maintenance like I prefer. And I actually think I look a lot better with short hair, even though long hair is really fun. All right, I'm not sure if I completely finished that last question, but that pretty much gets us into the next section of the video anyway, which is going to be me addressing myself 2 years in the future. So I have a few questions for you, future Osiris. First question, how have you been for the last 2 years? What have you been up to? Where are you living? Who's important in your life right now? Please tell me everything. What is the state of the world right now? In 2026, we'll know who won the presidential election that's happening this year. Do we still have a democracy? What's the situation with all of this technology that's been big in the news lately, like artificial intelligence, electric and autonomous vehicles, augmented reality, virtual reality? What's happening with TikTok? Is there any kind of social media developments with Twitter/X and Elon Musk? Like, what's going on in the world? Please, I need updates. I don't think I mentioned it, but 2 years ago, I did predict that Trump would win the presidency. I'm going to lock in that prediction. Trump's going to be president. Am I right? Am I wrong? Is there any optimism in American politics right now? It's looking pretty bleak. Now that Bernie Sanders, kind of the one figurehead for the left, socialist, whatever you want to call it, movement in America, he's so old that you can't really count on him to be the torchbearer anymore. So I don't know what's going to happen with that, but I like to believe that maybe there's some momentum in the right direction happening. Let me know, is that true? What's going on with Ukraine, Russia? What's going on with Israel, Gaza? What's going on with China, Taiwan? Just what's the situation in the world? What are you doing for work? Are you still working in user experience design? Right now, you don't really have any plans at all to leave your current job, but as I mentioned before, I do dream of working in a job that fulfills me more and I'm more passionate about. How has your health been? I talked a little bit about my mental health and also my physical health with my leg. How are you doing? Is your leg any better, any worse? Are you better with your mental health? Are you seeing a therapist? Just how are you doing? What kind of music have you been into lately? This year, I have been doing a challenge that I did 2 years ago, actually, which was to listen to a new album every day of the year, and that's been great for exposing me to some new music I wouldn't be listening to otherwise. Lately, I've been listening to a lot of like Latin jazz, bossa nova. It's been really nice to like work to in the background. But also, Starfucker just put out a new album recently that I really enjoy. I've been listening to a lot of Thundercat, Kaytranada, Temples, Sir Chloe had a great album last year that I loved. What are you listening to currently? I'd love to know what kind of music has come into your life in the last couple of years that you really love. All right, one last thing. I would like for you to show me 5 or so objects from around you that kind of not necessarily are important, but have some kind of significance to your life right now. I'll give you a few examples from my life 2 years ago from when you're recording this video, future me. So the first object, I've got this book, Priory of the Orange Tree. I just started reading this a couple weeks ago, and I'm about halfway through, and I've been reading it like every day after work. I'll walk down the street to the hill, which is like a park, just a little neighborhood park, and I'll lay out there in a blanket as the sun sets, reading the book, and it's been really nice. And that's just kind of like a recent thing I've been doing the last couple of weeks, but yeah. For the second object, I've got this little toy piano. I just found this on the side of the street a couple of months ago when I was hanging out with Nissa, who was visiting from Brooklyn. Yeah, it's just a nice little toy piano, and I keep it by my desk while I work, so randomly throughout the day, I'll just see it on the ground and play around a little bit. And for the last object, I'm going to show you my beautiful kitchen that I live in currently. And this guy, this skeleton that Nova, callback, gave me in high school, and I've kept it with me ever since. Everywhere I've moved, I've brought the skeleton with me, probably to over 30 different apartments, houses, and other domiciles I've stayed at over the years. And hopefully I've still got a hold of him as you're watching this, future me, and you can show me how the skeleton guy's doing. But yeah, that's going to do it for this video. Hope that you enjoyed it, and I will see you in 2 years. All right, one last thing. I want to show you these two girlies that live out on our porch right now. Little Miss Mama Cat and little Miss Orange Cat. Erin's been feeding these two for like a year now. We have lots of neighborhood cats that come, but these two are our mainstays that live out here on the deck. And like I said, Erin feeds them, and they're cute. Mama Cat will come up and let you scratch your head sometimes. Orange Cat's a little more skittish. But that's all right. And this is our backyard. The loud intersection. Our neighbors are having a party across the street there. Maybe you can hear the music. Yeah. Okay. Well, goodbye again. See you in 2 years.